You know, usually in Formula One, when you look at the timing screens and a team suddenly jumps like a second and a half up the grid in a single week, you immediately assume there's a glitch.
Right, yeah. You assume a transponder broke on the car,
Mhm.
or maybe the timing software and race control just completely crashed.
Exactly. Because motorsport at this level, I mean, it's supposed to be binary. You're either fast because you spent 3 agonizing years developing a concept, or you're slow. You do not just find a second and a half on a Tuesday.
No, you really don't.
But then, you step into the paddock at the Hungarian Grand Prix, and suddenly that entirely logical framework is just completely shattered. We are looking at a mid-season turnaround that is, quite honestly, visceral.
It's a shock to the system.
It really is. I mean, you look at Aston Martin, a team that has been enduring brutal, completely justified criticism all season long. Let's be honest, the base AMR 26 they launched with was a disaster.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a mechanical and aerodynamic nightmare that completely collapsed the second it hit the track. And then, they don't just bring an upgrade to Hungary, they bring an absolute revolution.
But we have to be clear here. It wasn't a miracle. Let's establish that right out of the gate, because the paddock loves a fairy tale.
Right.
And this just wasn't one.
Right.
This was a calculated, agonizing sacrifice of months of development time. Adrian Newey's technical department, they saw the structural anomalies, right? They saw the deep, fundamental design flaws in their floor and their suspension geometry.
Yeah.
And they made the excruciating choice to stop patching a broken concept. I mean, they practically built an entirely new car in the middle of a championship fight just to maximize every single minute of factory work.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the mission for this deep dive is to decode exactly what this AMR 26B actually is.
Yeah, we really need to.
We need to tear down this radical gamble, figure out how it works, and then we need to look at the incoming Honda power unit upgrade that is threatening to completely blow up the midfield championship fight.
And we have to start by looking at the hard data, because the numbers we're seeing on the telemetry traces are almost unbelievable.
It's wild.
Let's rewind just 7 days prior to Hungary. We're at Spa-Francorchamps. Aston Martin is dead last.
Brutally last. I mean, they were over 2 seconds off the pace. They
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
just miss Q2. They were embarrassingly far from even sniffing the cutoff line.
Yeah.
You watch the onboard footage, and the car looked completely undrivable.
Exactly. But then, fast forward one single week to Hungary, suddenly the AMR 26B hits the asphalt. They sail through Q1.
Yeah, they do.
They're destroying Williams, Haas, and Cadillac on pure aerodynamic pace. Both cars finish in P13 and P14, fighting wheel-to-wheel with Alpine in the actual race.
And the internal simulations from the paddock are showing a gain of like 1.6 to 1.8 seconds. That is light years in Formula One. You simply do not find 1.8 seconds in a week.
No, you don't.
But here is where I have to push back on the heroic narrative coming out of their garage. Sacrificing half a season to start from scratch is a massive embarrassment for a team with title ambitions.
Wait, really? An embarrassment.
Yes. And beyond pride, it's a terrifying financial failure. You don't just throw your hands up, write off half a year, and start over when you have a $140 million budget cap breathing down your neck.
I mean,
You can't just throw away $20 million in R&D without completely destroying your 2027 development budget. It screams of a fundamental failure in their initial design philosophy.
no, see, I completely disagree with you there. It's the absolute opposite of an embarrassment.
Yeah.
I think it's the ultimate display of a ruthless, championship-winning mentality.
How is getting it entirely wrong in the winter and burning tens of millions of dollars a championship mentality?
Because pride kills F1 teams, and we've seen it 100 times under the cost cap. A team builds a bad car, and they spend an entire season introducing microscopic front wing tweaks
All right.
and tiny little floor edge changes,
Yeah.
desperately trying to prove their initial wind tunnel data wasn't flawed. They just bleed their budget dry,
Yeah.
trying to fix a foundation that is fundamentally cracked.
I mean, sure, but
It takes sheer guts to look at the board, admit the base AMR 26 is a failure, and redirect every resource into a B-spec car. You take the financial hit early rather than bleeding cash all season.
okay, I see your point.
And the real victory in Hungary wasn't just the lap time. The actual triumph here was correlation.
Right, because before this, they were essentially building on quicksand.
Exactly. Think about how a modern F1 car is developed.
Yeah.
You design a part on a computer in CFD,
Yeah.
right? Computational fluid dynamics.
Yeah.
Then you build a scale model and put it in a wind tunnel. If the computer says the part generates 100 points of downforce and the wind tunnel agrees, You build it.
But for the first half of the year, Aston Martin would bolt those parts onto the real car, and they would generate absolutely nothing.
Nothing. The car would bounce, it would porpoise, the airflow would detach. Their simulation tools were literally lying to them.
Which means every time they tried to upgrade the car, they were essentially guessing. I mean, you can't engineer your way out of a problem if your ruler is broken.
Precisely. But in Hungary, for the first time all year, the data in the factory, the data in the wind tunnel, and the actual physical telemetry on the track matched perfectly.
Wow.
When you have correlation, you have security. You can finally start adding aerodynamic load to the floor, knowing it will actually translate to grip on the asphalt, rather than just looking good on a computer screen.
And the rest of the paddock was entirely rattled by this. You look at the reactions from rivals. I mean, Carlos Sainz was literally in shock during the media scrums.
Yeah, couldn't believe it.
He pointed out that Aston Martin went from having one of the absolute worst aerodynamic drag levels on the grid to suddenly, in one race, fighting for the best aero load in the midfield.
It's insane.
But, you know, this 1.8-second gain actually exposes a glaring contradiction. If the chassis is now so brilliant, why are they only finishing P13 and P14?
Well,
If the car is that good, they should be hunting podiums, which means something else is critically broken.
right. And that critical failure is sitting right behind the driver's head.
The AMR 26B achieved this massive 1.6 to 1.8-second leap while carrying a massive, heavy, underperforming ballast in the back. Their current Honda power unit is absolutely killing them.
It really is a profound mechanical bottleneck. The paddock consensus, looking at the GPS data, is that they are suffering a catastrophic deficit, estimated at around 90 horsepower compared to the frontrunners.
90 horsepower. To put that in perspective for you, it's like trying to win an Olympic marathon while wearing a 40-pound backpack.
That's exactly what it's like.
It's a bloodbath on the straights. It doesn't matter if the circuit is heavily power-dependent like Monza or twisty like Monaco. Any stretch of track where the driver has the throttle pinned to the floor, they are hemorrhaging lap time.
It is essentially a different, lower racing category on the straights.
Absolutely.
What's fascinating here is how that engine deficit fundamentally compromises the aerodynamics. It's a vicious cycle because aerodynamics and engine power aren't separate things, They are totally interdependent.
Right, because if you're down 90 horsepower, your aerodynamic department is basically held hostage. You know you are going to get eaten alive on the straights.
Yeah.
So the only way to keep up your speed and not be a sitting duck for overtakes is to basically take off your running shoes and run barefoot. You have to strip away the aerodynamic drag. The engineers have to aggressively trim out the rear wing.
And when you strip away drag, you inevitably strip away your downforce.
Exactly. So the chassis can't even fully shine in the corners because they don't have the wing angle to actually push the tires into the ground.
Yeah, and when you lack downforce, the car slides laterally through the corners.
It just washes out.
Right, and when the tires slide, they overheat. And when they overheat, they degrade exponentially faster. You're literally sacrificing your cornering speed and destroying your tires just to survive the straights.
So the fact that they fought Alpine, in Hungary Alpine, who currently have arguably the most powerful engine on the grid while Aston Martin is carrying a 90 horsepower deficit, it's staggering.
It really is.
It speaks volumes about the sheer mechanical grip of the AMR 26B chassis that came out of the factory.
It proves the mechanical geometry of the suspension and the baseline efficiency of this new floor are exceptionally high, which, makes the upcoming Zandvoort upgrade the ultimate make-or-break moment for this entire project.
The Zandvoort bombshell. We hit the summer break, everyone breathes for a second, and then we go to the Netherlands. And Honda is not bringing a minor tweak to the engine mapping.
No. This is a top-to-bottom internal redesign. The regulations allow for 2 ADU architecture and development update opportunities per season, and Honda is using both of them.
Both of them at once.
Yes. They're using both to pull their 2027 innovations aggressively forward into this year. We are talking about deep, fundamental modifications to how this engine breathes and detonates.
Okay, let's get into the mechanics of this because it's a massive shift. The telemetry is showing they are changing the internal shape of the combustion chamber, but more importantly, they're modifying the pre-chamber.
This is where we really need to dive into the physics of it. Modern F1 engines use something called turbulent jet ignition, right?
Right.
So instead of a spark plug just firing directly into a massive cylinder filled with fuel and air, the spark plug actually sits in a tiny little pre-chamber at the very top of the cylinder.
Okay.
And it ignites a tiny, super rich pocket of fuel in there first.
And then that initial explosion shoots these superheated jets of plasma through microscopic holes down into the main combustion chamber.
Exactly.
It creates a much faster, much leaner, and far more powerful burn.
Spot on. And Honda has completely redesigned the geometry of that prechamber. By optimizing how those plasma jets enter the main cylinder, they drastically increase the thermal efficiency.
So they get more bang for their buck.
Literally. You extract more violent kinetic energy from the exact same drop of fuel. On top of that, they are overhauling the entire internal lubrication system.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, by redesigning the oil flow, they slash internal friction. Less friction means less energy wasted as heat, which translates directly to free horsepower at the rear wheels.
And don't forget the electrical side. Managing the thermal energy, the battery deployment, the MGU systems, I mean, that hybrid generation of power is incredibly heavy.
Oh, massively heavy.
There are strong indications they've completely redesigned the electrical packaging to shave off several kilograms of weight. A lot of the excess mass holding back the base AMR26 wasn't just carbon fiber bodywork, it was heavy, inefficient mechanical packaging from the power unit itself.
And this isn't just theoretical dyno testing anymore.
Right.
They didn't just crunch numbers in Japan and hope for the best. They actually bolted this entirely new power unit into the back of the AMR26B and ran a stealthy 200-kilometer filming day at the Hungaroring right after the race weekend concluded.
Those 200 kilometers are absolutely invaluable. It's not about setting lap times. It allows the trackside engineers to actually map the engine.
Yeah, you have to.
When the driver presses the throttle 40%, how aggressively does the electric torque kick in? They have to calibrate the energy deployment and ensure there are no catastrophic software glitches before they arrive at Zandvoort.
And you can physically feel the shift in the paddock politics.
Yeah.
The Honda bosses, Shintaro and Harak guys, who have looked absolutely miserable, arms crossed at the back of the garage for the first half of this year, are suddenly walking around the paddock smiling.
Wow, that tells you everything you need to know.
It really does.
Yeah.
They know exactly what they saw on the telemetry screens during that test track run. But, you know, there's a massive philosophical clash happening behind closed doors right now regarding this upgrade.
Oh.
Yeah, Honda is reportedly sweating over the reliability of this aggressive new push.
Which makes sense. When you tighten the tolerances in the pre-chamber to increase the compression, you massively increase the risk of detonation or engine knocking. If that fuel mixture ignites a millisecond too early, the pressure wave hits the piston while it's still traveling upward. I mean, the forces are so violent, it can literally snap a titanium connecting rod in half.
It's a very, very real danger when you introduce radical internal combustion changes mid-season.
But look, I'm going to take a visceral stance on this. Give me the power and let the engine blow up. I do not care about reliability at this stage of 2026. I want pace.
Really? You'd take a DNF?
Yes.
Yeah.
The nightmare Aston Martin had at the start of the year was a car that was perfectly reliable but horribly slow. You learn absolutely nothing trundling around in P18 for 60 laps on a Sunday.
Well, that's true.
I want them to bolt in an absolute rocket ship. And if it detonates into a cloud of white smoke on lap 40, fine. At least they were fighting in the points for 39 laps.
You know, if we connect this to the bigger picture, I actually agree with you. In Formula One, it is infinitely easier to reinforce a fast, fragile engine than it is to magically find speed in a reliable tractor.
Yeah.
You want to push the thermal limits right now, find the ultimate performance ceiling, and then spend the winter reinforcing the specific components that break.
Exactly.
If you start conservative to protect the engine, you never actually find out how fast your car can go.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let's look at the actual numbers. The simulation data suggests this new Honda power unit is bringing a jump of 35 to 50 horsepower.
That is a colossal leap. In modern F1, finding 10 horsepower mid-season is considered a massive championship-altering success.
Yeah.
50 horsepower completely rewrites the aerodynamic mapping of the car. It means you don't have to run barefoot anymore. You can finally bolt on that bigger rear wing, give your drivers the downforce they need in the corners, and still defend yourself on the straights.
Depending on the circuit, 50 horsepower translates to an instant lap time gain of around 0.5 of a second. Half a second. Just from the engine alone.
It's massive.
Combine that with a chassis that just found 1.6 seconds of mechanical and aerodynamic grip, and you start to see why the rest of the midfield should be absolutely terrified right now.
Which brings us to the championship horizon.
Yeah.
We have the aero correlation, we have the incoming power unit. But how does this actually project into the immediate future?
Yeah, what's next?
Zandvoort is the ultimate acid test for this complete package.
It really is the perfect venue for it. Think about the track layout at Zandvoort. It is tight, it is incredibly twisty with those massive banked corners.
Yeah.
It is heavily reliant on aerodynamic downforce and mechanical grip, and it's far less power dependent than a track like Spa or Monza. It is perfectly suited to allow the AMR26B chassis to absolutely flex its muscles, while the new engine minimizes whatever deficit they still have on the short pit straight.
The target for Aston Martin has fundamentally shifted. Before Hungary, the goal was just to survive. It was literally just trying not to be last.
Just keep the car on the track.
Right. Now, the goal isn't just surviving Q1. It's consistently threatening Q3. It is scoring heavy points on pure, unadulterated merit without needing a chaotic, safety car-heavy race to luck their way into the top 10.
Yeah, they have Audi and racing goals squarely in their crosshairs. They want to be best of the rest, right behind the top tier.
But the tension here is incredible when you look at the human element. Imagine you are sitting on the pit wall.
Oh man, the stress.
You think about the emotional toll on this team. The mechanics who've been working 80-hour weeks, pulling all-nighters to build a B-spec car, the engineers who've been dragged through the mud by the media all year.
It's been brutal for them.
But for the first time all season, there is a clear technical vision to believe in. It's not just blind faith anymore, it's tangible track correlation.
But there's still a massive risk here. If they fail to integrate this new engine with the AMR26B, if the new power unit runs hotter and demands massive, draggy cooling loops, or if the wider packaging throws off the aerodynamic balance of the side pods, the season is completely dead.
Oh, totally dead.
There is no plan C. You don't get to build a C-spec car under the budget cap.
But if they succeed, if Zandvoort proves this aero engine package actually works in harmony, they begin a terrifyingly steady update schedule.
Yeah.
We know they have a constant drip of new floor edges and wing profiles ready to deploy at Monza and Baku, expanding on this exact baseline.
So what does this all mean for the listener? It means Aston Martin is no longer fighting for scraps. They are building the foundation for 2027 right now. On track, in real time, they are threatening to completely ruin the midfield order for everyone else.
And this raises an important question for you to mull over as we close out today's deep dive. If Aston Martin can suddenly find 1.8 seconds, completely reinvent their aerodynamic philosophy, and pull a 2027 engine forward while writing off half a season, what does that say about the development ceilings of the teams currently sitting comfortably above them?
Ooh, that's a good point.
Have Audi, Racing Bulls, and Alpine already tapped out their aerodynamic potential for these regulations, while Aston Martin is just getting started?
That is exactly the kind of aggressive, unfiltered technical reality we dissect every single week. If you want the real paddock reality, no fluff, just the raw telemetry and engineering warfare of the sport, you need to be following Paddock Notes.
You really do.
Join the fight. Hit subscribe on YouTube, get in the comments, and tell us if you think Aston Martin's new engine is going to detonate or dominate. And follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We are breaking down the grid every single day.
And honestly, hit subscribe so we can afford our own wind tunnel testing, because clearly half the grid doesn't know how to use theirs.
We'll see you on the grid next week. Keep the throttle pinned.